Oh, look at that, children. Santa Claus has come with presents. Wait a minute. Santa, you look a little strange. Those aren't presents. Could it be the Krampus? I made another fantastic figure from the dollar store figurines, and I'm going to show you how I did it right after the drop. Well, back to my favorite dollar store for all kinds of fantastic bits and pieces and inspiration. And today, this video, I'm going to use the drone figurine from the Final Faction dollar store toy line. Boy, I really love these figures. They make for great kit bashes. Just $1 a piece. Look at this fantastic sculpt. And this one in particular, this challenge comes from the missus. She's a big horror movie fan, and she loves the Krampus movie. I know there's several Krampus movies out there, but the one in particular with his big sack of toys that turn into villainous, evil monstrosities themselves, and then they eat children. It's a very fun holiday film, and I highly recommend it. But what would be even better? Making your own Krampus and letting the players at the table take him on. So that's what we're gonna do. I grab this figurine and I start chopping on his legs. The big feet don't work so well, but if you carefully trim and crop those very large looking feet, you can create these hoof shapes. And if you're familiar with the Krampus, he has, generally speaking, he has a goat-esque body with the goat legs and hooved feet. So this is going to work really well for me. Some careful cuts with the X-Acto and my trusty clipper, and I come up with a reasonable facsimile of hooved feet, and I'm pretty happy with them. These figures have a strange like protrusion from the hip. I'm going to cut that off. It doesn't quite work for the Krampus, so a careful little bit of snip and shaving. There we go. Let's attach these legs back to the body. And then I'm going to pull out my box of Citadel skulls. The Krampus is known for some wicked-looking horns, so I'm going to find a nice skull with some wicked-looking horns. After trimming those horns loose, I'm going to turn back to hot glue. If you watched last week's video, you'll know that hot glue really sticks well to these dollar store figurines, and I'm planning on this one working as well, and it does. A bit of hot glue. It gives me just the amount of time before it cools down to really position this horn. I want it to kind of flare out and look good from the front as well as from the side. And then I glue down the second one and just match the angle. Then I'm going to go back in with the hot glue gun, clean the areas around the hot glue a little bit with the hot tip, and then kind of fill out the skull just a little bit. I don't need to worry about it too much. I will ultimately put a hood over his head, but I want that understructure to look good. And speaking of wasting time, because I'm about to put a hood on top of his head, here I am gluing some spiked ears. So I tease the hot glue to where his little ears are and just keep building up and building up until I get these really cool spiked ears. This would work really well. It does work really well. And if you don't want to put a hood on your Krampus, and some of the Krampus designs, let's face it, Krampus is known worldwide, and there are lots of different looks and designs for a Krampus. So I picked the one I really liked. When you go and do this project, you pick the Krampus style that you really like. But I liked him with the Santa Claus robe and hood, and so that's where we go. But because I did the spiked ears, he'd look equally as fantastic without the ears. Did that make sense? Man, I'm rambling. Whatever. Here's a little piece of parchment paper. The Krampus has a really cool snowy beard, just to continue that Krampus Santa Claus interchangeability kind of thing, the dark Santa-esque story of the Krampus. So I lay down a hot glue beard on the parchment, and then I pull it up and just glue it to his jaw. And this was the step when I knew I was hitting this one out of the park. I mean, the cloven hooves look amazing, the horns look great, but when this beard goes down, it's like, yep, Krampus, you nailed it. Hell yes. I mean, you don't even have to do anything anymore. If you just glued this dude to a base and said he was the Krampus, no one would say otherwise. But we're going to do a whole lot more to him, because I can't end the video there, can I? No. I'm going to do another, not a beard, but this is going to cover the Krampus's shame. No loincloth for the Krampus, just a lot of billy goat scruff. A little hot glue on his hooves. I'm going to put him down on a large wooden disc for a base. This is a little larger than I wanted for the base, but it works. I want to shape his hands a little bit, so I use the heat from the hot glue gun, and it's going to soften the plastic. I'm just going to torque his hand so that I mess with the positioning a little bit. I want him to be holding his sack with this hand here, and just a little bend, a little torque there, so that it doesn't look a lot like the original toy. I want to change it up a bit. Then go in, fill your cracks with the hot glue, and you're good to go. Onto the robe. I go back to my cheesecloth. I love this stuff. It does. It works really well as a cloth, and in particular kind of a threadbare cloth, which really, really sells the Krampus look. So using a little piece of parchment to keep it from gluing to the table or the back end of itself, I take a little strip and glue a sleeve. This works really well. And then I'm going to roll up the end of the sleeve. I try to do a double roll, not always possible, but single rolls work well as well. Then once I get it rolled up, I'm gonna put it over the arm of the Krampus. Just make sure that it fits, that the length is right, and that it looks good. And when I like what I've got, I will make a second one of similar size and shape. With both sleeves done, I turn to my hot glue gun and just attach them along his back there. And I plan on draping a large piece over to hide a lot of the seams and make it look as though it's a solid robe. For crafters with a strong background in sewing, you might be better off actually sewing a tiny robe. I don't know. I have very limited experience with sewing. I probably could have sewed it, but if you haven't realized by now, I really, really like hot glue. It's quick, it's fast. I've learned to control it fairly well, and so heck with sewing. I'm just gonna hot glue everything on this thing, and it works. It works really well. It holds really well. All right, now it's time to get the rest of his Santa jacket or cloak. And I just take a very large piece, and in the middle of it, I'm gonna cut a slit for the neck and the head. And then I want it to have that rolled up collar. So once I get this cut out and like the size, I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue down, and then kind of roll the cheesecloth up, and this is going to create that collar, that very iconic white collar around the red Santa robe. Once I have the collar roughly done, I'm going to cut out where the shoulders land on this piece, and I'm going to cut the front and kind of round the back a little bit, and this is so I can lay it down, lay the front over, and then kind of wrap the back to make the sleeves look like they're part of the jacket, even though they technically aren't. And then it's more hot glue. I'm going to hot glue it down along his back there. And then what I do to make the seams look a little more legit is I'm going to fold the cheesecloth over at the shoulders there, and then I'm going to hot glue these down as well. And this really sells the look of this Santa robe or this Santa jacket. Then I just manipulate the cheesecloth, hot glue it down, hide seams, make it look real and legit, or as real and legit as I can, and it all comes together really well. Once I've got things in place, I'll take a scissors to it, clean up some of the loose ends, and then I take my white PVA and with my fingers just coat the whole darn thing in this white PVA. This is going to really strengthen the cheesecloth, lock it into place. At this point, you can use the glue to help shape the cheesecloth, and really, if you wanted to give the robe folds and flowing, a flowing look, this is when you do that. And of course, I need the Krampus to have his sack of not toys, but of horrors. And so I just, a lot like the sleeve, and then I turn it inside out, glue a bottom, and here I have a very rough, crude sack. I think that the folded over top is really important to sell the look. I stuff it full of little foam bits, and then I hot glue it down. And I know I don't have it in his hand, but the idea was to take a little of my butcher's twine and act like it's a cinch. And then I put it in his hand, wrap it around his hand, and get a really nice look. And here you can see I've started the hood just like I've done with the rest of the robe. I'll spear it with the horns so that the horns go right through it. And this ends, it really looks like the movie Krampus that I was trying to mimic. So happy with how this thing turned out, and I absolutely cannot wait to run my players through a new Christmas adventure where they have to battle with the Krampus. Then I need a staff. I need the Krampus to have a staff. I know in most tales he's got like a bundle of sticks that he beats bad children with. I'm gonna have a little fun with it, a little creative license. I want just one big staff. So I take a piece of doweling that fits the toy's hand really well, carve it up a little bit to give it some texture, cut it, and angle a piece across the top. And then I go around with my hot glue gun and add more texture. I want the staff to look a little gnarly, and this is going to help me do that. It also is going to allow me to hide the seams with hot glue, and then kind of put a texture on the cut ends and make it look like log or staff, as it were. And then another aspect of the Krampus that I really like is his silver bells. So you hear those bells and you think it's Santa, and boy, oh boy, what a crazy surprise you get when you realize that's not Santa. That's the Krampus. So I take a few wooden beads and my butcher twine, I wrap it around the top of the staff in a convincing manner, and crazy glue some beads to the end of it. And then I don't want them flopping all over the place, so I hot glue the beads down to the staff, just to lock things in place. I'm going to paint these up, and they're going to be jingly silver bells. And then finally, I wish I had a 3D printer sometimes. I would have loved to have printed some wailing children in distress for the sack, but instead I turned to my Citadel skulls. And I think it works. It gives the character a good reference of scale. I mean, you see how big he is compared to the human-sized skulls. It works really well. And then I'm going to coat the base in a white PVA and dip it in my craft sand. Once dry, take it outside and hit it with a Zenithal Prime, all black with a dust of white to mimic the light. And I'm really going to play up the Zenithal Prime on this guy this time. I'm going to let these colors interact with the whites, grays, and blacks and just have a blast. I'm going to coat the Krampus's skin in that storm gray, and then I'm going to go back with my flag red and hit his Santa's robe. And I'm not going to worry too much about full coverage. This cheesecloth is hard to paint, so water that paint down. You're not going to get great coverage, but again, with this Zenithal Prime, I don't need great coverage. The idea is for the Krampus to look a little threadbare, a little rough around the edges, and this watered down flag red in combination with the Zenithal Prime does the trick. He looks fantastic. I'm going to paint the whites around the robe with a light buttermilk. Going to get the hood, the sleeves, and then the edging around the cloak and the edging around the bag. And man, the red really helped, but the white, this light buttermilk sells the look. And Krampus is born. And take a gold and hit the cinch around the bag and the twine around the staff. I love these little punches of color. We've got this pretty drab figure with this bright red cloak and these golden ropes. The juxtaposition of colors and things really sell the Krampus. I'm going to take the matte black, hit his hooves. I do his fingernails too. I hit his horns. And then I'll go in with a toothpick and I'm going to try and draw like the lines of the bells to make it look like those are legit silver bells around his staff. I really like the idea of you hear this joyful jingling and it's actually the Krampus and not Santa. And then I'm going to hit his eyes with that same flag red. I use a toothpick to help me get in there and it works really well. And then I'm going to dry brush with light buttermilk. I don't have a snow effect yet, but I'm working on it. But the dry brush of the base serves pretty well. And until I get a proper snow effect, that's going to do. And then normally I wash the whole darn thing, but I really liked the colors as they were. I didn't want to darken them up, so I apply a dark wash to very specific areas. His face, the skulls, his beard, and his billy goat scruff. And this just sells the textures and highlights some of that great sculpt in the face, and that way his red eyes pop all the more. And here we have him, the Krampus. I'm so pleased with this figure. He's going to make a fantastic Christmas adventure for the players. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, smash that like button. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. Share the video with your family and your friends. And until next time, like each other, love each other, and craft on.